want to bring in my colleague, senior political correspondent, Mike Couteur, to unpack the significance of all of that. First of all, let's start with the NDP, Mike. Your interpretation of the message that they're trying to deliver to Canadians to try and explain their vote, which is kind of two-part, right? 5 against the budget, 2 abstaining, which did allow the budget to go ahead.
Yeah, I think I looked exactly at what Laurie Idlout said, the MP from Nunavut, where she said, there were things in there for my riding, and that's why I had to abstain. Now, for people at home who might think that that doesn't make a lot of sense, well, by abstaining, she would have known that that would have allowed the passage and would have meant that those things for her riding could go forward. So not to say that they bought her vote, but certainly they possibly would have paved the way, the Liberals would have, to make sure that even though in this budget there was a big focus on the Arctic and on the North, that they did give her a bit of an out here. Gord Johns from BC, he had said that he spent the last week consulting with people in his riding, mayors, different leadership groups within his riding as well, and saying the overwhelming response was that they didn't want an election. So the NDP here essentially choosing that this government should continue with a budget as flawed as they believe it is right now, but that should continue rather than plunging this country into an election. Now, your front bench has gone at great lengths today at saying that why the NDP likely also doesn't want to go into an election. They're dealing with a leadership campaign right now. They also don't have tons of money to be able to run a full election campaign. So probably a little selfish on that end as well, and self-serving to make sure that they didn't have to do that. But you heard Don Davies there say that, look, this is not the last vote and not the last vote on money bills and confidence votes of this particular government. They can oppose at different places. They just feel like this is not the time nor the place to bring this government down right now, because as the math would have it, we would be heading to the polls around Christmas time, and nothing that I think any Canadian would probably want right now. And certainly the polls are showing that, and the politicians believe that. And so it feels like they had a bit of an out here, and they took it. But certainly by Don Davies standing there with his NDP colleagues trying to say this still isn't good enough as part of the Liberal government, and hoping that they will negotiate more, to the point that Alexandra Boulris has said they seem immovable. Well, I think they're trying to put a scare into the Liberals at this point and then look for more negotiation down the road.
Yeah, because there will be other votes that matter in this way. Just really quickly on the Conservatives, Mike, just got a response from Shannon Stubbs' office. I'm just going to read a portion of it. Her office says she's been on approved medical leave in the early stages of recovery from major jaw and chin surgery. It goes on to describe, her gratefulness to the hospital staff. The surgery was originally set for last spring, but it was postponed when the Liberals called an election. When it was rescheduled, very few surgical dates were available. Essentially, all medical approvals were granted months before any notice of the budget. So her office says she's essentially recovering from this significant surgery, and therefore that was scheduled before all this stuff, and therefore was unable to vote. So the big focus for the Conservatives in the coming days, at least from the media's perspective, in questioning the Conservatives, will be Matt Generou's decision to abstain in what it says, and whether he just remains in caucus until the spring, as the leader of the party had indicated he would.
Yeah, and especially considering that sort of play now, Vashi, the fact that there are months now he will have to go to caucus and be in caucus if he chooses to sort of serve out in that way. We know that is the schedule as has been set out by the Conservatives, but is there a possibility now, after he abstained on this vote, that they say, you know what, if you wanted to go now, you can probably head for the door? Because this obviously is one of those votes that the Conservatives would have liked to bring down the government on, if you believe everything they've been saying publicly. But the fact that he does abstain matches the 2 votes that we had seen 2 weeks ago, the sub-amendments and the other amendment to the budget. So he abstained from those. Kind of consistent, but at the same point, there are some questions for Generou and why he abstained from this one.
Okay, Mike, I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your help in our coverage this evening. Our senior political correspondent, Mike Couteur.